Story 1. They cannot, in any situation, have just one. That one is opening the door. It's the starting gun. Once it goes off, they are off to the races no matter what. Story 2. Whenever my mom would call my dad out for drinking every day against the doctor's orders because of medication, that's why. He would sometimes not drink to try and prove a point, but he would repeatedly say in the middle of a conversation, "See, and I didn't even have anything, and you said I drink every day." Then the next day he'd be back to drinking beer every day. He would get very defensive about it at times. Story 3. Drinking every day for years. Never missed a day of work. Never called out sick in 10 years. Never had a hangover. A normal guy living a normal life, but each day ends with a nice tall glass of vodka, finishing that 1.75-liter bottle every few days. 2 years post-liver transplant. Kind of feel robbed, you know. I never was drunk all day, every day, never passed out in the streets, never really lost control or got in trouble, or had anything exciting happen. Just a boring, high-functioning alcoholic in denial. Well, until I figured out I had end-stage liver disease. Spent 4 years living in a state that I would say is worse than death. Lucky me, I'm saved. Got on the list, yay, thanks for the new liver. Can't ever play disc golf again, though, or drink, of course. I scream, Happy New Year. Story 4. The biggest giveaway for someone struggling with addiction, whether alcohol or otherwise, is that they are borderline hypochondriacs, but all the symptoms they complain about are the effects of substance overuse. Alcoholics often complain of not being able to sleep, having vertigo, having high blood pressure, and similar issues, all of which are the result of drinking too much. Once they get help, these symptoms typically resolve. Story 5. Not being able to imagine having fun without alcohol. I have known people whose entire idea of a fun time is getting hammered. No matter what it is, they consider it not worth doing unless alcohol is involved. Story 6. I was a high-functioning alcoholic for almost 10 years. It started with going for beers after work on Fridays. Then it was going for beers every day after work. Then it was realizing, holy shit, I can drink on the way home from work. Then it went to, holy shit, I can drink during work. Then it went to, wow, I can drink before work. Then it went to, I can drink whenever I want. I drank between 15 to 20 beers a day, every day. I hit a point where I couldn't remember not having a beer. And then the weirdest thing happened. One day, I woke up and just didn't want to drink. I wanted to quit. I had enough. Almost 2 years later, I don't ever crave a beer or anything. I just drank my fill. Story 7. My parents made it clear to my family members that their wedding was alcohol-free. They caught a table of my aunt and a few others from my dad's side with a whole bottle of alcohol that they had snuck in. They all got pretty wasted, but especially my aunt. I overheard my other aunt mention once that this aunt would wake up in the mornings and have alcohol with breakfast. Her orange juice would mainly just be alcohol instead. She wasn't joking about it. My aunt finally got help a few years ago and, to my knowledge, has been living a much better life. Story 8. They spend multiple nights a month on a friend's couch because they drink too much to safely get home on their own. They drink to get hammered nearly every time. Story 9. Obesity caused by alcohol consumption. Puffiness of the body. Missing key events or separating from family. Often physical signs show up before mental state problems. Story 10. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and some of the things I used to do are hiding or lying about my drinking in any way, like stuffing empty bottles way deep down in the trash bag so no one sees how much or how often I am drinking, or putting my drink in a cup with a lid so it's not as obvious that it has alcohol in it and to help mask the smell of the alcohol. Passing out before finishing the last drink I made that night and then drinking it first thing the next morning when I wake up so it doesn't go to waste or to take the edge off my hangover. When I'm stressed, upset, or sad, the first thing I want to do is have a drink. When I'm celebrating or happy, the first thing I want to do is have a drink. Story 11. I'm an alcoholic with 12 years of sobriety. The most obvious one is justifying your drinking. Blowing off steam, just need to unwind. On some level, you're aware you shouldn't be doing it, so you're preemptively doing damage control. Story 12. I would honestly put weekend binge drinking culture on this list. and I have a feeling I'm going to get downvoted for it, but it's my serious belief. I'm not talking about having a few beers on the weekend. I'm talking about people who get absolutely trash drunk every weekend and pretend it's not a problem because it's on the weekend. The problem is that it is still extremely bad for every organ in your body to the point of very likely shortening your lifespan. I guess that's your choice, but I believe it is a form of alcoholism, personally. Edit. This is a nice surprise. Reddit. My apologies for doubting you. Story 13. My dad hadn't been feeling well, went to the doctor, and got some blood work done. Results came back, and his doctor told him he needed to stop drinking immediately. My dad's response? Get a new doctor because he thought his doctor was trying to hold power over him. My dad goes through a handle of Macallan about every 3 to 4 days by himself. His father was a raging alcoholic, but since he can function well and still get things done, he doesn't think he has a problem. He can't go more than a few days without drinking before he gets the shakes. Story 14. When people joke about how the only thing you drink that does not have alcohol in it is your coffee, but that is just because they do not know your coffee is spiked as well. Story 15. I'm a sober alcoholic, so I understand. These can mean it, but they don't always. 1. Talks about how they need to cut back but haven't. Really into breweries or wine tasting. Orders the alcohol with the highest percentage without fail. Points out other people's bad habits with alcohol. Oh yeah, I guess I drink a lot, but I'm not like those bums on the street. Wine mom. It's wine o'clock. Get it? Doesn't remember most events where there was alcohol. Most of their stories revolve around drinking. Every event, without fail, they bring alcohol for everyone. Orders way too much alcohol for a table. 10. Has a ridiculous tolerance for alcohol. 11. Reeks of alcohol at all times. 12. Shower beers. 13. Has tons of bruises from events where they drank that they can't account for. 14. Partner is either codependent or they don't have a partner. 15. Expresses occasional interest in getting sober. 16. Well, I don't drink as much as you do. 17. Constantly trying to quit but not due to alcoholism. Failed attempts usually, oh, I'm doing sober January. Wait, no, I'm not. That's stupid. Teen. You got any alcohol? No? I'll grab some. Story 16. When they become defensive when you stop drinking, criticize your hobbies and hangout spots that aren't alcohol or drinking related, and cannot think of any activities to do while sober. Story 17. People who hide behind the fact that the alcohol they drink is expensive wine, I don't care. You're still an alcoholic. You just have more money than those who get intoxicated on beer all day. Story 18. If you mention that they might have an alcohol problem, they will reference other people who do not think they do. These people are usually also alcoholics. For example, my ex-girlfriend. Here is a rundown of a typical argument between us both. Scene 1. Interior, my house. Me. I think you're an alcoholic. Her. Well, Karen doesn't think I'm an alcoholic. Karen enters. A 30-year-old alcoholic. Karen. How dare you say she's an alcoholic? If she's an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic. End scene. Story 19. Every event and gathering is a drinking one, no matter how casual or formal, or if it is allowed or not. Always drinking. Weddings, funerals, parties, dinner, casual hangouts, kids' sports, playing a recreational sport himself, driving, skiing, alone, he says, or with others. Story 20. Oh, some for me that took me way too long. Frequenting bars based on how close they were to my apartment. Several midnight or later runs to get beer. Getting more beer so I don't have to get more later. Drinking first thing in the morning. Drinking after a hard day at work. Drinking because I was off that day from work. Telling myself multiple times I don't want to drink anymore. Trying to convince myself I wasn't going to drink the whole six-pack and never following through. And lastly, and probably most importantly, asking others or wondering myself if I have a problem with drinking. Am I an alcoholic? When you get to that point, you should already know the answer. Story 21. Not being able to leave a glass unfinished. I remember being on a date and the woman nursed a beer the whole time. Then when we left, she did not finish it. I wanted to drink it for her, That was one of the signs looking back that made me realize I had a problem. Story 22. I had a friend who would buy kegs for his house so he would save money compared to going to the bar, and he also said it would decrease the chances of him driving drunk because he would already be at home. He also would spend time complaining about mysterious damage to his car. Everything was always someone else's fault. Story 23. Had some family and a couple of friends over the years sit me down and wanted to talk about my drinking. I don't have a problem, was my regular response. I didn't want to listen to it, and my drinking just got worse until my life fell apart and I lost everything. I wish I would have listened. So if people in your life are concerned about your drinking, then it's likely a problem, regardless of how you see it yourself. But I'm glad to say I finally did listen to somebody, and now I'm 5 years sober. Story 24. Reassuring people that how much they drink isn't an issue when no one pointed it out in the first place could be from hanging around people who have given them a hard time for no reason, or because they are trying to convince themselves. Story 25. I believe in the idea of training to hold my liquor better. While I admit that alcohol can hit you harder if you are not used to it, you can't increase your tolerance from lightweight to heavyweight drinker. Story 26. An alcoholic always describes their idea of an alcoholic as someone who drinks that much more than they do. For example, I only drink a 6-pack per day while Joe drinks a case. I only drink a case of beer a day while Joe drinks a fifth of whiskey. There's always someone else, never them. For real though, I find most people who drink a lot to be pretty forthcoming about it, almost like a badge of honor. Story 27. People who brag about being able to drink large amounts of alcohol and not get drunk, being the last person standing, and so on. That's because you've built up a tolerance to alcohol since you're an alcoholic, my friend. There's nothing to brag about. Story 28. Going off in the comments about how it's not always a problem to drink and drive and people shouldn't be so uptight as long as you're below a 0.08, especially on the top comment. Story 29. Getting aggressive about, I can handle my drink. No, you can't. Take me for example. Last New Year, I blacked out and woke up covered in vomit and having made the bathroom a complete mess in a drunken stupor. I'm lucky I didn't fall down the stairs. They were only a few feet from the bathroom door. It was the worst alcohol-related incident I've ever had, and I can't, to this day, eat onion ring crisps because of the smell of my own vomit that night. I know my limits. I just messed up that day with my alcohol content when mixing drinks. A word to the wise, kids. Sweet-tasting drinks mask alcohol easily, and you'll be in trouble before you know it because you'll be able to drink it too easily. At no point am I like, that wasn't a big deal. I can spin it as a funny story, but it was a horrific day. I don't want to be in that situation again. But an alcoholic would be like, it was a one-off. I drank on an empty stomach. I'm not used to that type of alcohol. Just excuse after excuse as to why they're out of control. Excuses mean they're not taking it seriously. Story 30. When the sentence describing how much they drink starts with, I only have, something alarming tends to follow. I only have 4 beers or so on weeknights, or so on. Story 31. Obvious withdrawal tremors, but saying, I just have tremors and I drank too much coffee. I think I actually started to believe I was just naturally shaky. Story 32. My dad has always drunk, but it went from maybe 1 or 2 a week to 1 or 2 a day. He used to be pretty thin, and now he's got a huge beer gut. He's got edema in his feet, and he's not treating it, and high blood pressure. I'm waiting for the day he finds out he's got liver disease or has a heart attack and dies. My mom has tried to approach him, and he said, I'm fine. But I know if she took all of his very expensive liquor he keeps in the house and dumped them all, yeah, he'd lose his mind. He'd go nuclear. This is why I avoid the stuff entirely. Story 33. A lack of self-awareness when it comes to their addiction. I'm an alcoholic, but I know I am, and I agree with those who call me one. That being said, I make sure everything and everyone in my life is taken care of before I take a single drink for the night. I also know that's a cop-out to make myself feel better about my consumption. I'm not naive. Therapy really does help you understand yourself. Story 34. Not taking accountability for things going wrong in your life that are a result of alcoholism. Instead, telling half-truths to seem like a victim, Example, well, I got fired. I was 6 minutes late, and my lazy boss fired me. Forget him and that terrible place. Translation, I was constantly late for work week after week and had been given several warnings. Finally, my boss had enough. Story 35. Not eating all day so they can get drunk while appearing to not be drinking a lot. Blacking out every time they drink. Choosing friends who will tolerate their behavior and drink just as much so no one calls them out for having a problem. Story 36. Any person who has ever had the thought, do I drink too much? Is drinking too much? I know from personal experience. I still drink too much, 9 to 12 a day, and I can tell you that thought was evident long before now. Story 37. Can I give a shout out to the wine mom culture? No, Lindsay, it's not okay to have a tipsy brunch, lunch, or snack every playdate just because the baby had you up all night. I suspect that those who make it their entire personality are either actually struggling with life or using having kids as a convenient cover for their alcoholism. Story 38. So I'll tell you about someone who used to be very close to me. I'm now her person of trust if she needs to be sent to the hospital. Going out to buy milk for her child. She forgets milk but still comes back with alcohol. She offers to have Japanese food delivered to my home and adds a bottle of rose wine. It doesn't mix, but in larger quantities it's better than beer. A small glass of alcohol when coming home to relax. She gets really nervous if there isn't any and looks for an excuse to go to a restaurant. Since then, she no longer has a husband, her second husband has also left, her children no longer want to see her, and I have to hospitalize her against her will several times a year when she relapses. She no longer has any hygiene and is surviving because we're trying to keep a roof over her head.